What is up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. On this episode of the podcast, we are going to talk a little bit about, All-Star Weekend in the NBA and how the NBA can potentially learn a little bit of little something from the NHL with their four-nation face-off, which was fantastic over the weekend. So that's coming up. We're going to talk some Badgers as well, with the Badger basketball team picking up a huge win against Purdue. You believers now Badger fans? So we're going to hit that up. Quick, a little housekeeping. Don't forget, I want to hear from you. Leave me a voicemail. Shoot me a text on the Man Cave hotline. That number is in the podcast description. And if you could, just a couple seconds worth, if you could, give us a positive review and a 5-star rating so others can find the podcast, like on Apple and Spotify and such. So, all right, let's jump right into it. You know, I opened up, talk a little bit about Badger basketball and that big road win against Purdue. Couple of fun facts from that game outside of the win. But Wisconsin, with their 94 points, is the most points ever scored in a road win over an AP top 25 team. The Badgers, as we mentioned, shot 61.5% from the field, but that was the highest by a visiting team at Mackey Arena since 2004-2005. Wisconsin's 61.5% shooting was also its best mark in a road game since at least the 93-94 season. Wisconsin is the only D1 team to shoot 60% from the field and commit 3 or fewer turnovers in a road game since at least 2010. UW. How about this? Okay. Wisconsin went 20 for 22 from 2-point range. The highest 2-point field goal percentage by any D1 team in a road game since 2010. It also marked Wisconsin's fewest turnovers against a ranked team since posting none against number 25 Iowa back in 2015. So, a lot of really good stuff happened for the Badgers, and they played almost darn near perfect basketball, especially in that second half, to go into Mackey Arena and pick up a win. And you know Purdue probably, at least was probably, a little bit more motivated coming off of a loss earlier in the week against Michigan. But what a huge win for the Badgers. And I want to ask you, Badger basketball fans, as we are now getting closer, or college basketball fans in general, as we are getting closer to tournament time. Okay, we're about a month away, a little less than a month away from Selection Sunday, believe it or not. 6 games left in the regular season. Got the conference tournament coming up too. But are you now a believer? If you were on the fence before, or maybe not ready to push the chips into the middle, maybe you're a little pessimistic because it is the Badgers and such. But what you have seen so far this year, the Badgers sitting at 20-5, and now a win on the road against Purdue, where Purdue, Wisconsin has not had a ton of luck at Mackey Arena. Are you now like, all right, I'm in. I'm all aboard. I'm ready to maybe get my heart ranked again, or heart broken again. So after the win, they moved up. Selection committee, you're looking at bracketology. They moved up to a 3. Moved up to a 3 seed, 11 overall. Net rankings, 12. Ken Pom, 9. KPI, 11. Those are pretty darn impressive numbers. AP poll, we'll find out. Maybe at least just outside the top 10. Again, I don't know if they'll move up just 6. They did only just play 1 game this week, but it was a big win. So I don't know if they'll move up 6 spots to get up to number 10, but got to imagine they're going to move up a few. But those other rankings, that tells you a lot about this Badger basketball team right now. So are you ready to believe? Are you ready to believe in this Badger basketball team when it comes to tournament time? I know we got 6 more games left to go in the regular season and a Big Ten Conference tournament to go. But I'm ready. I'm ready to get my heart broke. I'm all in. I love the backcourt of this Badger basketball team. I love the Johns, Tanji and Blackwell. We're seeing contributors like Max Klesman. I mean, for crying out loud, you had a redshirt freshman, Jack Jadicke, doing his thing. Kamari McGee got ejected on, I thought, a very questionable ejection. I was listening to Greg Gard after the game, and he was asked about it, and he was very professional about it. But come on. I mean, an ejection, no, not even close to be ejected, an ejection worthy, in my opinion. But you've got, when it comes to tournament time, the old adage is guard play, backcourt play. And right now, I think the Badgers have some spectacular, absolutely spectacular guard play and backcourt play. And I think, I get it, I know, and I'm a big believer in this. A lot is going to depend on matchups and when it gets to tournament seeding, and it's kind of hard to project right now at this point in time. But this team, I think if we ask the question, does this Badger team have the talent to be a Sweet 16 team? I 100% think this Badger basketball team has the talent to be a Sweet 16 team because of their backcourt play. I love it. I mean, Tanji, that pickup was monstrous, and you got to give a ton of credit to Greg Gard and his staff for getting the fifth-year man to come in through the transfer portal. What a huge pickup. Blackwell, last year, we saw glimpses of him. We're like, okay, there's talent there. We know there's something there, and we're excited for this year, and he has taken a step. I mean, for all of the guys that left in the transfer portal last year, AJ Storr and you know, Chucky Hepburn and that, we're like, man, Freetag's going to have to play right away. We don't have any guards. We don't have any backcourts. Greg Gard said, you just wait. And just another fantastic season so far from him, from his staff, and from this Badger basketball team. I absolutely think they could go to the Sweet 16. They got that talent there, and I am ready. I'm ready to put my chips in and say, let's go. This is such a fun team to watch. The only, I mean, I feel like we're beating this, you know, to a pulp. But it's true. If you ask the question, what's the biggest question mark or the biggest concern surrounding this Badger basketball team, it's going to be the bigs. It's going to be Steven Krall. I mean, I feel like Steven Krall's been picked on for the last few years, but he has, because it's the consistency. It's the consistency from the big man. And we haven't gotten that throughout his career. Just hasn't been there. You look at his career stat. In fact, his numbers are a little bit down, at least in points and rebounds. Part of it is because his minutes are down, but he's averaging 9 points per game, 5.6 rebounds per game. Last year, he averaged 11.2 and 7.3. A couple years ago, where he averaged almost 31 minutes per game, he was putting up 12 points per game, 6.9 rebounds. He'd get more playing time if he could just go out there and be consistent. But you're looking at these last, 5 games? Purdue 3 points, Iowa 7, Indiana 3, Northwestern 3. And a loss against Maryland, he had 10. That's my only concern. I mean, if you could just, if the Badgers could consistently get, 11 and 7, 11 points, 7 rebounds from him, 12 points, 7 rebounds, somewhere around there, like consistently, I'd be like, okay, now maybe we got something cooking. I don't want to get too excited or anything like that, but maybe we got something cooking. But I like this team. And I think they've got the talent to make a Sweet 16 run, to get back to that Sweet 16. And it's going to start with their backcourt. It's going to start with the two Johns, John Blackwell, John Tanji. And you look at, it's still kind of weird to say this when it comes to the Badgers, but you got a top 30 team. And I know it's like, 30. There's a ton of teams, okay? There is a ton of Division I men's basketball teams in the country. So top 30 in scoring is pretty darn solid, especially when it comes to the Badgers, that we're not used to this, right? We're not used to this. So to say you are a top 30 scoring D1 men's basketball team in the country and you're the Wisconsin Badgers tells you a lot about how this offense, and I think that is a direct correlation and a lot of credit to Kirk Penny and the offense that he has brought over. You got to give him a ton of credit. And I don't know if teams that are going to have future openings are going to look at that and be like, head coach. I hope not. I hope that's not the case. But to put it in a little bit of perspective here, too, so actually Wisconsin's 28th. So ESPN's not updated. This is according to NCAA.com. Wisconsin, 28th in the country. 81.5 points per game. Michigan's 26, 81.6. Okay, you're talking 0.1. Iowa's a top 10. Iowa's 10, 84.1. Okay, you're just a couple points. Duke, Badgers averaging half a point more than Duke. Duke's averaging 81. Highest scoring team in the country is Alabama at 90. They're the only team in the country that's averaging 90 points per game right now. But still, the fact that we're talking about Wisconsin over here, heck yeah. Absolutely. I'm loving this, man. I'm loving this. But so, are you ready to buy it? Are you ready to say, I'm in on Wisconsin? I get it. Again, I get it. It's, when it comes to tournament time, it is 100% based off of matchups. You get a bad matchup in a first round or a potential second round one, it can affect you. But from what you've seen now from this Badger team, 20-5, with 6 to go, this offense, the two Johns, you feel like this is a Sweet 16 worthy team? Because I do. I definitely feel like they are. Did anybody spend a second, 5 seconds, a minute, maybe the whole thing, and watching any of the NBA All-Star stuff over the weekend? We did at our house because my kid his favorite sport is by the season. I was the same way as a kid. I'm sure a lot of you were, at that age when you're asked, hey, what's your favorite sport? And it's probably different every time you get asked it because it all depends on the season. I was the same way as a kid. And right now, his favorite sport is basketball. It's basketball season for him. He's playing in basketball. He's all about the NBA. But, so he was all into the All-Star and watching. Dame's one of his favorite players and that. So, watching three-point contest and that and the other skills and whatever. It didn't get me excited. I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. Yeah. Max had a couple good dunks and such, but it was like, okay, this is for the kids, but whatever. The NBA All-Star game last night, they changed it up. Had the 4 teams, Rising Stars, and then, Shaq's team, Charles' team, Kenny Smith's team. Tried to change it up to garner more interest. Again, my kid wanted to watch it, but the NBA started it so gosh darn late, and if they want to do this for the younger fans, start it a little bit earlier for these kids, okay? Just start it a little bit earlier, especially when you're going to spend 20, 25 minutes in intros and having a concert, okay? Like my kid said, stop with the music and just start playing. He's 7, for crying out loud. So, but for me, I was like, okay. The one thing that when I was watching, I'm like, okay. And I think it was Reggie Miller that said this too when it first started. Like, oh, it's going to be interesting to see if we're going to have some more defense Are we going to see some more, focus on defense? And there was a couple players, or maybe a couple times, there was some good defensive play, but ultimately, it still lacked. It's still lacked in this thing. And this weekend, the NBA is probably going to get more attention for it because the NBA is a little bit more popular than it, but the NBA could learn something from the NHL and the Four Nations face-off that we got to see. If you didn't watch that, now see, I'm not the biggest hockey fan. Okay? I'm not. I'll admit it. You all know it. I'm not the biggest hockey fan. But I watched USA and Canada, and I loved it. I mean, when you drop the gloves with it right away, I know some people are like, oh, the fight is that. I'm all about that. Okay? I don't care. I know some people are saying, well, that was, fixed, and there was I read somewhere it was like a group text going on. And I don't care. You know why? Because it sucked in people right away and got fans pumped up right away. It's like, okay, here we go. Drop the gloves, and we're going to start some scuffling right away. Not saying the NBA's got to start fights or anything like that. But I thought the NHL nailed it with the Four Nations face-off, replacing the All-Star game this year. The NBA could learn something from it. Now, there's been some talk about making the All-Star game for the NBA Team USA versus World. Okay? So, it'd be like, Steph Curry, LeBron, KD, those guys would have been on Team USA, but then World would have been like Giannis, the Joker, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, that type of thing. It's not like NBA players all grouped into one Team USA, and then, you got players who are currently playing overseas. Not that. It'd be, people who are representing Team USA, like the Olympics, okay? We know Giannis doesn't play on Team USA. He plays for Greece. So it'd be kind of like an Olympic style. But instead of the Team USA just dominating, I think it would actually be pretty close. And honestly, I might pick Team World versus Team USA. But neither here nor there. So there has been some talk with that. I'd be in favor of that. The only thing that I'd still question about it is, would it improve the actual All-Star game in itself? And I have doubts on that. There might be some point of pride for some of these, and that's the biggest thing that I think you've got from NHL and the Four Nations face-off. When you get these players representing their countries, whether it's USA, Canada, Finland, Sweden, the four here, there's, I think, a little bit more of a point of pride for those players repping their countries in this style. You got kind of already a little bit of a built-in hockey rivalry with Team USA and Team Canada, right? I mean, that's already kind of built in there. So, while I think there would be a little bit of pride, maybe I honestly feel like there may be I think there would be a little bit of pride between, like, okay, Team USA wants to show that they're still the king of basketball, but then Team World's going to want to say, no. We caught up to you guys. We're the best. So I'm sure there'd be a little bit. But I don't think it would ultimately change the game into where, like, okay, we got defense on every possession. We got some strong defense. We're going to have some, solid basketball being played. I still have my doubts on that. I have my doubts on that. If it could get to that level, like we saw with the Four Nations and such, then I think, like, okay, you can get more people to tune in. Now, obviously, if you're not a basketball fan, you probably could give a rip and you probably didn't even know it was on to begin with. And that's fine. But for the people who are, pay attention to more than just one or two sports and pay attention to all the sports out there, did you chime in a little bit and watch it a little bit? It was okay for me. It was okay. But I'd be intrigued with Team USA versus Team World. But I'd still have my doubts whether it would fix the whole thing. But I think they could take a page from the NHL. There was also Giannis had talked about it. So Giannis approves that. He was doing some media sessions, and Giannis says, yes, sign me up for the Team USA, Team World. But he also said he would, one thing that was being thrown out there was potential 1v1, one-on-one contest. And Giannis said he'd be all about that too. He would do that. I would probably, I think because anybody who's played basketball as a kid or played at any level, at some point you played 1v1. Whether it was with your buddies at the park or in the driveway, you all played 1v1. And I thought Giannis made a good point. It's like if you play 1v1, you got to play defense. You got to play defense. If it's like him versus Kyrie, you got to play defense. It naturally forces you to play D. And I think I'd be about that. I'd watch that. I mean, now these kids, when they're playing video games, you got 1 versus 1 as an option on there. But the other part is, could we see Giannis in the slam dunk competition? Now, this was back on Saturday night, Ja Morant. So when Mac won it 3 in a row, three-peat, Ja Morant tweeted, Mac might make me decide to dunk. Giannis responded by saying, if you do it, I'll do it with you 100%. So Ja, I think NBA fans and basketball fans in general just want to see the slam dunk competition get back to what it was with Vince Carter, with Spud Webb, with Dominique Wilkins, with Michael Jordan, with those dudes back in the day. We want to see it get back to having stars in the thing. Ja, you got one of the, that's the leading vote getter in the NBA All-Star game. Giannis, a global icon. Giannis saying, I'll do it if you do it. Ja, if you're serious, you want to help this thing, say right now you'll commit to the dunk contest in 2026 and then put the pressure on guys like Giannis. Giannis put it out there. Giannis said he'd do it if you do it. Ja, go out there and say you do it so Giannis does it. Okay? Go do it, please. Because I want to see it. I want to see stars in this thing. I want to see some names in this. NFL, I don't think, can learn anything from the Four Nations just because the NFL All-Star Pro Bowl thing is just so far gone in the tank. You'll never get it back to what it used to be. It's just gone. It won't happen. It's a different mindset. It's a different style. You look at the players, there's no interest in it from any of those guys. I mean, for crying out loud, when you're like 5 deep, like the 5th option for a quarterback to come in and play, nobody cares. Nobody wants to do it. Some want to. I think it's the players that maybe haven't been elected to a Pro Bowl yet. Some have it in their contracts. Hey, you make a Pro Bowl, you get paid more money. Great, that's awesome. But in terms of participating in that, there's certain players when they get to that level like, no, thank you. And it's just we're not going to see Sean Taylor jacking up a punter anymore. They can't change anything to make it go back or to make it more interesting because the guys don't want to get hurt and the teams don't want their guys to get hurt in a meaningless game. In a meaningless contact game. Sure, basketball players could tear an ACL in the All-Star game and such. That definitely could happen. A baseball player could seriously get hurt. But for football, if they could take away any of the major hits that would get somebody hurt, that would affect their upcoming season, they ain't going to do it. NFL is so far gone that the Pro Bowl will not go back to what it used to be. It just won't. Not going to happen. And that is going to do it for us on this episode of the Man Cave Podcast. Again, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the Man Cave Podcast wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple and Spotify, even on YouTube. And if you could, give us a 5-star rating. It takes you just a couple seconds and a positive review so others can find the podcast. Until next time, I'm Dan Casper, and we'll talk to you on the next episode of the Man Cave Podcast.